How's it going, everybody? We got some crazy updates to the Starjammers who are not performing very well. And if you were on my Twitch chat earlier today, you saw me spend 4 hours making a video about what their current weaknesses were and what I would suggest they change. And before I got to publish that video, Scopely put this out. Ain't that the way it goes?
I'm really surprised they got to this so quickly, because I know Matt Sheets was responding to us. I don't know if it was late Friday, early Saturday. So this is something that either happened all this morning or they worked on over the weekend. I feel like this was a pretty quick response, actually.
Yeah, and probably rightfully so, right? The way the team was performing, some people were losing some like insane matchups. So while they can still, capitalize, and while people still have a little bit of interest in Starjammers, they better fix them up. Especially because we know Lilandra is needed for Professor X, so people want to invest in her team.
Yeah, but this doesn't really help her in that sense. It's just, yeah, anyways, we'll get into it, right?
Yeah, we'll get into it. There's a couple things on my wish list that were not met here. We'll talk about that. So just briefly, won't go over the synopsis. Just like after reviewing community feedback, internal data, Starjammers showed they suck. That's their words, not mine. You see here where I highlight it says they suck. It doesn't say that if you're just listening. All right, Havok's passive speed mechanic was too inconsistent and difficult to predict. AKA, they couldn't figure out how to code the Hank Pym bug, right? Why don't you tell me what the Hank Pym bug was?
This is a placement error. So depending on where the placement is and the order of operation of the other team was triggering Havok's passive in a way where he was getting different amounts of, what are we going to call this? Total team, actual speed, net speed? We got to come up with a better way, because speed bar and speed up and speed gain all sounds the same, but it wasn't working right. Some matches, they would just get wiped before they took a turn, and other times they would wipe beforehand, right? It was like all over the place, right? And it was like the match would play out very differently depending on where Hank was placed. And this is a problem that they have not addressed, and it still exists in the game in two other situations. Underworld, where you place the Taskmaster, far left. The actual drain mechanic on Vulture, where you place Vulture on that team, needs to be on the far left. This is something like that.
Yeah, so to what you were saying earlier about speed, I use 3 terms for it. I say speed stat, which is what this is.
Yes.
Speed up down, which is literally buffs and debuffs. And then speed bar increase and decrease, which is the actual blue bar manipulating it like that. And it is very easy to get them confused because it's all speed. And speed manipulation is just so powerful in this game, no matter which way it comes from. But
so this is speed stat. This is speed stat. He was increasing the stat of the team. So this is very similar to the way Emma was lowering the stat on the other team. So it's like that.
That's exactly what I was about to say. So basically, if you are looking to counter Havok now, you need the new Emma Frost X-Men, which stops speed stat gains, except for mythic characters. So Emma Frost X-Men stock through the roof. Astra looking pretty dang good right about now. Let's continue, though. Howard the Duck's anti-speed bar manipulation is a powerful mechanic, but it turned off after he took a turn, which, as we spoke earlier about in your video, which make sure you go ahead and check out the video. The link will be in the comments and the description. He was the second person to go on the team. So his speed bar mechanics were basically, I stop on spawn speed bar and nothing else, right? So that raised a lot of issues with, and they're going to say right here, Super Skrull. Why don't you talk to us what the issue was with the speed bar from Howard the Duck and how it kind of turned off a bit too soon?
Okay, so Howard goes after Havok, and that's somewhat early in the match. And then there were a multitude of matches, like S6, which I got wrecked on. Most of the big fails that I saw were related to Super Skrull. Some of them as simple as Super Skrull, Carnage. But Rocket goes afterwards, and as you pointed out, he puts out a lot of, effects, positive effects, which then gives turn meter to Super Skrull. Super Skrull then is game on like Donkey Kong, and it just pops off. Like he just pops off, turn meter rewind. And then, if there's somebody, specifically, let's say with Carnage thing, then Carnage passive works, and then it's just a snowball, and Starjammers were exploded pretty quickly. It happened to me specifically with S6. It was unbelievable. It really was unbelievable.
Yeah, because for all the good damage that Starjammers are capable of, they're very squishy. But we'll read about in depth what it means kit-wise when we get down to the changes. And then there was Lilandra's ultimate, extremely powerful, but it was still just a standard clear. So instead of it just being a buff clear now, they're giving it what I call the decay effect. So it's going to now decay buffs, including Safeguard, by 2. And if the effect is at 0, then it's just over, right? Much more powerful ability. You'd agree?
Yeah, this is a very powerful mechanic. I mean, in-game Thanos has this, and it's bonkers, right? In-game Thanos is probably going to be very good for a long time, especially because it pops off when he drops below 50%. That's just bonkers too, right there. Like it just happens passively. This here, you're going to talk about why this is kind of mediocre. I think it has to do with turn order, why this is not that great.
Yeah, I agree. But now the Starjammers do have a positive effect decay and a negative effect decay from Groot's also. That's kind of interesting. But let's get into the actual kit changes. So Havok, his special, it's going to do more damage now. I think it's kind of whatever, because Havok's special still doesn't hit through defense up, and it's still not hitting into flipped buffs, which Lilandra, in the turn order like you talked about, she's a little bit late there. But they updated his ultimate, and they didn't add damage to it. It hits hard already, and it does hit through defense up with piercing, clearing positive effects and clearing charge on the primary target. What do you think their objective was in this change?
Well, there are a couple things that is definitely reads like they're trying to get through with Black Knight, or they were worried about someone using Black Knight on offense as a counter to this team. That's what it reads to me, is that they probably tested it. There was some sort of team comp with Black Knight on offense that just wiped this team. Also, it was interesting to me the way that Havok was, in most circumstances, his special was more impactful than his ultimate, which presented a situation where the AI wasn't going to play it correctly.
Yeah. You know what they didn't talk about in Havok's ultimate, which I thought was interesting, is right now Havok's ultimate is bugged. Any enemy that has barrier was getting the defense down from Havok's ultimate. They didn't say if they were fixing that. They didn't say if they were leaving it. They didn't say anything about it. So we'll have to see if that is still putting defense down on all enemies with barrier. But more big changes to his passive. Like we talked about, he's now going to be doing speed stat gains for each Starjammer ally up to 20%. That's a huge amount, right? So if a character has 100% speed stat, they're now going to have 120. This actually makes this team one of the fastest teams in the game, especially because Howard stops speed bar. Lilandra on the full team is going to be stopping speed up. This team cannot gain slow. So really impactful speed mechanic there, right?
Yeah, I mean, so this is similar to that of what Man-Thing does for Night Stalkers, what Nimrod does with Orcus, and the counter to those mechanics currently is the new Emma, which you said adds a lot of value to her because she's plug and play with this mechanic. She's actually probably going to be very good for a long time. Her kit's very important.
Yeah, I think so. I think whatever counter comes out for this team in like 8 months or whatever is probably going to lean into that exact effect. And I didn't even mention, but Havok's passive, for whatever reason, also got a 100% buff to piercing. So whenever an enemy hits a Starjammer ally or X-Men ally or him, it's not going to do 300% piercing. This probably feels like nothing to you if you're like me and you have a 3-star Havok, but I saw Ceci's 2-diamond Havok passive do this, and it's pretty hard. 100% damage, nothing to sleep on, right?
Yeah, I was praying on my losses that this was going to save me, and it looked like it was going to. I mean, I was like, this is very important. Yes, this is very important.
Yeah. All right, quickly on Howard the Duck. His special is going to clear 2 positive effects. We will scratch our head at this one. We don't know what this is for because you want to open up with his ultimate anyway for the ability block on the trauma and like defense down the primary. Kind of a weird thing to throw in there, right?
Yeah, I have no idea what this is for. No clue.
Yeah, and then here's the big change to Howard. This, I think, is going to actually save people from the most losses that they currently were experiencing. So in Crucible, let's just skip to the new part. If this character has 4 or more Starjammer allies and does not have exhausted, so there is kind of a pity effect here as well, this effect persists after this character takes a turn. So no longer when Howard takes his first turn is it donezo. How do you feel about that? I like that they added a qualifier, so if you are struggling against this team, an exhaust is going to just stop this, right?
Yeah, I think what I was mostly worried about these changes is the potential of creating a Starjammers Odin team. This in some way stops that. Maybe there's a team that does not exist with Howard. I don't know. Or maybe there's a 4-man team. You know, maybe you could do, I don't know. But anyways, that we'll find out, right? Yeah. But this is Crucible specific. This is exhausted. I like the qualifications on this that, let's say, Captain Britain does not have.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's important that you keep Captain Britain a little special. Being that he's an epic tag character, same as Scarlet Witch Zombie, right? She does the exact same thing, but in war instead of Crucible. Speed stuff, you got to be careful with how much speed stuff you put out there.
Yep. Yeah, we're plug and playing Scarlet Zombie Witch on other teams all the time now. Yep. But she does have a qualifier on hers. Her health has to be above 50%. So this is kind of has a qualifier there, the
Yeah.
exhausted, the full team, fine.
Yeah, Captain Britain's is different. Captain Britain is like, if I was on the field at any time, no speed bump for you, which I
Makes
think
him special. Makes him special. That's for sure.
very much so. And here's the most interesting character in my opinion, because she's needed for Professor X, means you're gonna have to gear to 20 her. And if you saw her damage, like you were saying, everyone's gonna have her at 7 red, 7 yellow, who's an engaged player.
Yes.
Her damage goes pretty crazy, but
Yep.
weird place on our team. So let's read the changes. So her ultimate, it now does the decay effect, right? So if this character has 3 more Starjammer allies, it'll now reduce the duration of all positive effects by 2, and any effect that is at 0 is going to just fall off. And then we have a buff to Gladiator, 20% health to the summoned Gladiator. That's not the change he needed. He needed to spawn in with 0 turn bar, in my opinion. But let's talk about this. So my biggest gripe with this team, and I think the reason a lot of people lost, especially to a team like Liberty, is that the buff flip comes super late here. Lilandra is the 4th character to go. So you get Havok goes, he can actually hit through defense up with his ultimate, but then Howard hits, it tickles, Rocket hits, it super tickles, especially if the character has like defense up, safeguard, some death proofs, deflex, like there's a lot of not blockable abilities here. Do you think that they should have considered kind of bumping Lilandra up the food chain so she would erase the buffs ahead of time?
I don't have a specific to that, but I do think that 2 things are going to happen is that the damage that she does is going to be way more impactful after all of the effects are cleared or removed to 0, whatever. And we're going to be getting over time a 7/7, like just through engagement, like free to play 7/7. So I feel like what's going to happen with this team is she's either deleted some characters or not, and then see what happens.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way that this reads, because Groot's not gonna. I mean, maybe he could clean up one character with a special, but other than that, it's kind of like you're gonna have to wait for the rotation, the turn to come back around.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So like a lot of past teams that have come out recently have a buff clear before the damage. Like go to Astral. Shadow King special flips buffs before it does the damage. Blade actually hits through defense up the same way Havok does on all of his attacks, I believe. Scientist Supreme puts defense down out right away. So we're used to these new teams having rework characters, Captain Sam, for instance, that they're hitting into defense down or they're hitting into no buffs at all, and they're wiping the floor. But because of Lilandra's placement, this team doesn't really have that, right? But as you said, people are getting Lilandra up very quickly, and she is going to be kind of filling that sort of like alpha position on the team, because she's going to have to, right, with her position on the team.
Well, she right now she's been tickling, right? She's been hitting into everything, whether it's deflects or defense up, safeguard, of course, because that's every team has safeguard right now.
Yeah.
And I have her at a 4/4, or some people don't even have 4/4s right now. Like it's nothing. Like it wasn't doing anything, and I suspect that this is gonna delete teams.
Yeah, I think when you get the higher stars, it will. Like I've seen this team with like diamonds on it and a 6 red, 6 yellow Landra, and it crushed. Like it hit the Illuminati members from, I think they were around 75% life to like 2% or dead, and those were like max Illuminati. So it's gonna be pretty impactful. And then we got some changes.
And
Go ahead.
they're not having things to keep them alive, whether that's death proof or things like that. It's gonna be good. I think I think that's the way the team is gonna feel. Is like, oh boy, she's wiping out. Someone's going to already be weak from Havok and Groot and Howard, right? And so probably by the time she goes, 2 out of the 5 will be dead, is going to be my guess.
Yeah, me too. And then we have some changes to the reworks. Nothing crazy here, right? Like they did take the qualifier off of Groot, so it doesn't matter what health he's at now. He always stops assist chance. We spoke about this on your video. We're kind of thinking this is just to prevent some sort of shenanigans, get Groot knocked down low quickly, and let's assists like from Odin happen, right?
Or even Old Man Logan, right?
Yeah, exactly. I actually used him on the counter when we were playtesting this team. And then Rocket Raccoon, he got a health stat upgrade. I think he needed a damage stat upgrade. He probably needed his special to be piercing and unblockable for him to be interesting. But that didn't happen. Instead, he is now going to be reducing enemy max barrier by 25% if he's got his full team. This is actually going to do more than you think it's going to do, right? Now that the team, like they still rely on the enemy having barrier a little bit, Havok, I think, does extra damage if they have barrier. Howard pings people who have barrier now. So you still want the enemy to have barrier a little bit. So it's kind of is counterintuitive, but also it means you're going to be hitting their real health faster.
Well, there's some characters that get barrier back all the time. Like, like Gladiator and Illuminati gets a lot of barrier back. So the other thing too worth mentioning is that most characters, not all, but the default is 30% of max health. So this is essentially wiping out most of the total barrier. Now, some teams have extensions. There's a lot of examples of that. But in general, the one question that I have is, what is this going to do to the null boss fight?
It's not hidden behind Crucible. It doesn't say hidden behind Crucible. That's kind of interesting. But let me counter that. Do we still feel Starjammers suck outside Crucible?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's probably not going to matter against null.
Well, maybe that is the point of this. Maybe they're adding that value to Starjammers inside of Battle World. I'm not sure what that means because, yeah, I don't think this team is going to be good in war or anywhere for that matter. This is nothing. This team is supposed to be in their lane, and my hope for these changes are a couple things. One is that they're not super annoying, with like an Odin comp on defense where they're unbeatable. And my hope for them is that they actually can get through Odin Illuminati. I'm that team really bothers me right now. It's kind of tricky. I feel like there's a lot of efficiency matches that come down to how well you did on that exact fight and so on.
I agree. And hey, you guys are going to be able to find out this Wednesday when Mobile Gamer, myself, and 6 other envoys enter that Crucible battle arena again to showcase the new season rules. And that's going to be starting at 3 p.m. Eastern to 6 p.m. Eastern, I believe. And there's going to be lots of fun, right? These tournaments are kind of nerve-inducing a little bit, aren't they?
I don't think people understand how stressful this is. And largely, we have a heads up with the tournament rules, but everybody else is kind of going blind. We have a little bit to know what the rules are, but there's no experience. I mean, it's completely uncharted waters, and it's very stressful. I hate to say it. It's actually stressful. I stream every day almost for like the last 5 years, and this is stressful. These tournaments are stressful.
I agree. But hey, some good news. If you come check either me or Mobile out on Twitch, you're going to be getting the new Twitch drops. 700 cores for watching 1 hour of these handsome mugs. Can't go wrong there. And
you get a Captain Marvel skin because we play her all the time. That would be great.
Yeah, I think that's the high note to leave the video on. The Captain Marvel skin. All right, guys. For me, Mobile Gamer, thank you so much for checking this video and have yourselves a wonderful day. And let me know what you guys think about these changes. Got anything you want to say?
Fist bug out.
No, that guy squished my fingers at In-N-Out. It's horrible.
Oh my god, you guys were up till like 3 a.m. that night or something. That's bonkers, man. I was waking up when you guys were getting in. I'm saying, oh my god.
I had to get on the flight I had to leave the hotel at 4, so I just didn't sleep. I was like, I can't.
You stayed up the whole night?
Oh, I was terrified I was gonna miss my flight. All I wanted to do was get home and get in my bed, get some cuddles from the kids, and hey.
I was waking up at like 4:30, and I was getting messages from you guys from like an hour before. I was like, oh my god, you guys haven't slept yet. I slept like a whole 6 hours already or something.
Yeah, and it's not that we were drinking. We went to get burgers at In-N-Out. Hey, In-N-Out burgers are mid. Enjoy the video, nerds.